After 24 years, my husband's need for swinging pushes us apart. As I struggle with my health and emotional walls, can we find common ground to rebuild our connection? Throwaway account on mobile, so I apologize for the formatting and typographical errors, and if some parts do not make sense. It is late and I am tired. A summary is at the bottom as this post is lengthy. I do not even know where to begin. My husband, 44 years old, and I, 41 years old, have been together for nearly 24 years. During that time, we have experienced our highs and lows, but for the most part, especially over the last few years, we have been committed to being our best selves for each other, focusing on self-improvement and our relationship, and things have been better than they have been in a long time. Some potentially helpful context and history. I will attempt to be as objective as possible. We both have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. He has been diagnosed with the inattentive type, whereas I have the combined hyperactive and inattentive type. We present very differently. I also believe I have high-functioning autism, although I do not have an official diagnosis for that. We both have a history of anxiety, and I have a history of depression and premenstrual dysphoric disorder, PMDD. I am currently experiencing perimenopause. We have had an open relationship and have been active swingers. This was suggested by my husband, as it is a significant turn-on for him, and I was more than happy to support him in this and take an active role in our activities. When we are actively swinging, our relationship is as solid as it ever is, and it is wonderful because I get to see my husband as his best self. We know that to keep things running smoothly, we must stay connected, be excellent communicators, and essentially be on our best behavior. He struggles significantly with vulnerability, especially regarding sex. Communication is also not his strong suit. He experiences severe rejection sensitivity dysphoria RSD as part of his ADHD and has poor emotional regulation. I also struggle with regulating my emotions. We have both individually and jointly sought help from psychologists in the past. However, due to negative experiences, he now flatly refuses and has prohibited me from suggesting that he or we see one again. About 3 years ago, I experienced a major negative life event that triggered stress-related issues, which have snowballed to where I am now. I am barely coping. Life feels much more challenging than it should be, and I am trying to do everything in my power to improve it. I'm attempting to follow all the textbook advice, but it feels like trying to herd cats. The catalyst to our current situation, since my physical and mental health began to decline, swinging took a backseat. My menstrual cycle became extremely unpredictable, which made planning difficult. I gained 12 kilograms almost overnight despite not changing my eating or exercise habits, and I did not feel mentally prepared to participate in the lifestyle. Consequently, we transitioned from active participants to sporadic involvement, and then ultimately to no participation at all. I wanted to put swinging on hold until I felt I could regain control of my situation. During this time, I communicated my thoughts and feelings to my husband. He mainly supported me during this time. However, as we distanced ourselves from the lifestyle, I felt he withdrew from me more and more. He said that towards the end, I sent mixed signals with some of my actions, but I believe I was struggling between attempting to give him what he wanted while also not pushing my own boundaries. It all came to a head at the end of last year when we had another significant conversation in which I again expressed to my husband that I needed him to be vulnerable with me, to lower his walls and allow me in, to trust me, and that I did not feel as connected to him. He responded by asking what if I did not like who he was with his walls down, or if I did not like what he had to say or do. I essentially replied with trust me and try me because what is happening now is not working. Afterwards, I noticed a positive change in him and in our relationship. I could see that he was genuinely making an effort, and I appreciated what I was witnessing. For the first time in 20 years, it felt like he was letting me in. There were a few hiccups where he was open about some issues, but would try to minimize them, and then contradict himself later when he referenced the situation again. I attributed this to his difficulties with vulnerability. Our sex life also improved tenfold. Then, in December, we traveled out of state for work and stayed in a paid accommodation that felt like a mini vacation. In the beginning, we were having some of the best sexual experiences we had had in a long time, and I was feeling very positive about him and us. During dinner one night, we discussed fantasies, and I inquired about some of his that I might not know about. He said the only one he really had was related to swinging. I reiterated that I was still not in the right headspace for it at that moment, but likely would be in the future. I just could not provide him with a timeline. I also mentioned that I did not feel as though things were 100 solid between us, which made it difficult for me to want to explore external adventures, even though I felt that our relationship was improving significantly. I then asked him what would happen if we never swung again, and he replied that he would be extremely disappointed and let down because it was something he truly enjoyed, relishing the novelty and variety of engaging with many different people and experiences. I completely understood this perspective, given his ADHD and dopamine-seeking behavior. However, this conversation was a major trigger for me due to my childhood experiences, where all I heard from that was, "You are not enough for me." I communicated that to him, and he retracted his statement, but only ended up digging himself deeper. The conversation devolved from there until he expressed that he could no longer handle the emotional weight of the discussion and asked if we could revisit it at another time. I agreed. We have an agreement that the responsibility is on the person who pauses the conversation to reintroduce it later. Time passed, and life became hectic, but I felt that we were doing fairly well together. He was trying his best, and I was trying mine. We were not extraordinary, but we certainly were not bad. A friend called me one night for a conversation, and my husband was nearby, within earshot, so he could hear my side of the discussion. I mentioned to my friend that things between my husband and me had been good lately, as my friend was aware, with my husband's consent, that we had faced some challenges in the past. The phone call ended. About a week later, following another discussion, I was completely blindsided when my husband told me that things between us were not fine. He expressed that I was misleading my friend by stating that we were doing well. I generally believe that I have a good understanding of the state of our relationship and how my husband is feeling, so this caught me completely off guard. We finally resumed our conversation from 3 months prior. I inquired about the delay, and he explained that he had not been in the right headspace to address it until now. His takeaway was that he completely misunderstood me or misremembered our earlier discussions, and believed that I had completely removed swinging from consideration and was adamantly refusing to engage in it ever again. This belief devastated him at the time. He stated that he deleted all the swinging-related applications, could no longer watch pornography related to swinging, or engage with any swinging content, as it was just too painful for him to cope with, given his assumption that it was no longer an option. His strong, adverse reaction surprised me. While I knew it was important to him, I had not fully appreciated just how significant it was. For what it is worth, the other day while driving to work, our car's audio system started playing a podcast that he had been listening to, which happened to be about swinging. He quickly switched it to music, which he usually does not play on the drive to work. I think he believed I did not notice and was attempting to hide it. Therefore, I am uncertain if his claiming that I had ruined swinging for him stemmed from genuine feelings, or if it was some kind of manipulative tactic to make me feel guilty. We discussed a few other topics during that conversation, and once we finished, we asked each other if we had anything else to say or discuss, and whether we felt the matter was resolved. I informed him that I did not feel our issue was resolved, but had nothing further to add, so we left it at that. I struggle with articulating my emotions and how I feel, so I knew I felt wrong but did not understand why. I had not yet figured that out. During a prior conversation a long time ago, my husband shared that one of his greatest fears in life is missing out on experiences or not getting what he wants, and that if he does not get what he desires, he might feel resentful. Since hearing this, I have done everything within reason to give him what he wants. However, in order for me to feel comfortable actively participating in the lifestyle, I need to feel that our foundation is solid before we do so. I must feel completely connected to him and believe that everything is okay. This is the opposite of his perspective. He believes that participating fosters connection and togetherness, which contrasts how I feel. This difference has become a point of contention for us. I have also expressed that I feel I only see his best self when we are actively participating and not when we step back. He has acknowledged this truth, so now I feel as though it is being held over my head. Although I have no intention of doing so, it occurred to me several days after the blindside conversation that if I were to genuinely take swinging off the table, he would likely resent me for it, assuming he does not already. Ironically, just before Christmas, I was feeling quite good and was going to suggest we visit a club, as we were not going to have another opportunity for quite some time. However, due to his crankiness and stress, I refrained from making the suggestion. In retrospect, I can see that over the past few months, he has been withdrawing from me again and putting up those walls once more. I feel as though I am leaving out a lot of other contextual details, but this post is already lengthy, and I apologize for that, as I struggle with being concise. However, if you would like any further details or information, I am happy to provide it. I do not even know what I am asking for, or if I am just venting. All I know is that after our most recent conversation, something inside me broke, and I do not know how to fix it. My desire for him has vanished. In fact, my libido has dropped significantly. I have barely even masturbated, whereas I used to have a higher sex drive than he did. I just feel numb inside, but not in the depressed sense. I have completely disconnected from him and have put up my walls because I have been hurt and am uncertain if I have the emotional capacity to handle it again. Nevertheless, I want to repair things. I want to fix us, but I do not know how to proceed. I told him that our issues are beyond my expertise, which is why I am here. What are some ways we might find a compromise where both of our needs are met? How can we rebuild our connection and remove the barriers? How can I help alleviate the deep-seated shame my husband has surrounding sex? Summary: my husband and I have differing views on core aspects of our relationship, and I now feel disconnected from him. I want to find ways to establish a compromise and help rebuild our connection again. Story 2. After a perfect relationship, my girlfriend suddenly broke up with me, citing fears of inadequacy and anxiety. Despite my attempts to reassure her, she left without explanation. Could a recent conversation with a friend or a mental health issue have influenced her decision? Hello, everyone. This is my first time on Reddit, and I am here because I am having difficulty thinking clearly and would like to seek help from strangers. As I mentioned in the title, my girlfriend left me 1 week ago. Where we live, this age difference is completely normal. We live in Italy, so please refrain from commenting on it. It all began 7 months ago when I visited my close female friend, 18 years old, whom we will refer to as R. During my visit, I met a girl we will call B, who was one of her classmates and was at Artike's house to have her nails done. While there, we struck up a conversation, particularly about my ex-girlfriend, whom she knew cheated on me while I was on vacation. We spent the entire evening talking, while our friend R caught up with another friend who arrived an hour after me. The following week, under the pretense of wishing her a happy birthday, I messaged her on WhatsApp, and we began chatting. After another week, feeling as if I had been struck by lightning and already in love with her, we planned a night out at R's house, where I gave her a book by her favorite author for her birthday. Inside, I included a card I had colored, stating, "To my favorite girl, happy birthday, hoping this is the first of many." She was overjoyed and hugged me. After another week of texts on WhatsApp, I visited her home with a ring and 4 white roses and 1 sunflower for her, in addition to some sweets for her and her family as well. I chose those flowers because she had mentioned, when we first met, that roses were her favorite, and I included the sunflower to symbolize how I was already beginning to see her as my personal son, and how much I wanted her in my life. The ring was a small gift because she loves cute jewelry, and I wanted to surprise her. Afterwards, I took her to a small cafe near her house, and we shared some treats. Unexpectedly, she kissed me. It was both her first time going out with a guy and her first kiss, as she had never even entered the talking stage with anyone before. Knowing this, I did not attempt to force any physical contact with her and did not hug or kiss her before or after this moment. We spent an additional 2 hours together, after which I took her home, where she kissed me again. This time we kissed for about 20 minutes, but I had to leave for work, so I regretfully told her I had to go. With that, we began a seemingly perfect relationship. We never argued, saw each other every day, and exchanged cute gifts. I even made sure to look after her family since her father did not take the initiative to cook for her, her little brother, and her mother. As I work as a cook, I made it a point to cook for them whenever I visited and her mother was at work. I also helped tidy up around the house and assisted both her and her brother with their homework. In Italy, as I am unsure about other countries, we both study and work during high school in what is known as school-work alternation, where 2 days a week we work, for free, of course, and on the other 3 we attend school. This continued until 3 weeks ago. That week, on Sunday, my paternal uncles came to visit me, my mother, and her significant other. My parents are divorced, and everyone is aware of what a piece of work my father is, as he is a narcissist and sociopath. We talked about my father. My ex-girlfriend was present, and she began to feel anxious as we all shared our experiences with him. When we finished, I was on the verge of tears due to my trauma from him. I drove B home, and once there, I started crying and confided in her about everything my father had done. He never physically abused me but never truly cared for me, among many other things I will not mention, and she comforted me. The following week, every time I was with her, I experienced a crisis because I was genuinely afraid of making her feel the same way my father made me and my loved ones feel. This continued all week until that Friday when, for the first time, we almost fought. However, we ended the discussion because I was already late for work. In the days that followed, I thought nothing of it since we hadn't raised our voices, we hadn't argued, and we remained calm even when we disagreed on something I perceived as unimportant. A week passed after that near argument, a perfect week indeed, as we spent time together every day, laughing, kissing, and even cuddling with my dog while we slept. We were blissfully happy. Then another Friday arrived. I picked her up after work, and since she had a particularly bad day and was feeling terrible, I took her to a bowling alley since she had many cherished memories there that brought her joy. After that, I took her home, where we discussed her struggles with anorexia nervosa and her relationship with her mother. I persuaded her to speak with her mother about her issues and to start seeing a psychologist. The next day, we did not see each other as she was discussing concerns with her mother while I was working all day. However, she texted me happily, stating that her mother listened to her for the first time and agreed to let her go to therapy. I was also pleased, and we decided to celebrate by visiting our mutual friend R the following day. I refer to her as ours now, as B and R had grown closer because of me. That Sunday, we went to R's house, where we spent the day eating and playing together. But here comes the unfortunate part. R invited a friend, whom neither B nor I knew. Aside from some stories R had told us in previous months, this girl arrived and we got acquainted. She mainly spoke with me because I am quite friendly and outgoing, the same reason B initially started talking to me. Additionally, she dated a teammate of mine, I play football, so I wanted to hear her side of the story. However, she did not engage in conversation with B, who was feeling shy and unwell and appeared half asleep while I was cuddling and kissing her. After spending about an hour talking with this girl and R about their experiences with guys, I drove B home and recounted how amusing it was to learn that their perspectives were so vastly different. However, B directly asked me if I thought she resembled her other best friend physically. I responded, "No, E is much cuter than you, but that is only because I dislike your best friend since she constantly tries to set you up with other guys and push me away." Despite my reassurance, she appeared sad, and I tried to persuade her otherwise, but she dismissed it. The next day, we spent nearly the entire day together with R, and in the evening, since B was still feeling unwell, I took her home. After about 20 minutes, she texted me asking if we could meet to talk. I went over to her house, and that was when she ended our relationship. I sought to understand why. She merely told me that since that fight, her fears regarding me had worsened, and the final straw was witnessing me talk to E. She added that she had been throwing up all night, experienced panic attacks, and nearly fainted. I was taken aback and immediately asked if I ever gave her the impression that I wanted another girl or wished to leave her for someone else. She replied no, stating she had never felt that way and had always felt treated like a princess or goddess. But she was fearful due to our past because she knew how I behaved before we started dating and was afraid of being replaced. I must admit 2 things. I have had many girlfriends in the past, and I have always enjoyed jokingly flirting with people, which has always made my colleagues laugh, and it brings joy to clients, particularly female patrons. But I have never flirted with anyone while with her. It is something I only do when I am single. I reassured her that she had my passwords for everything if she wanted to check for herself and that I only wanted her. Yet, she said she did not wish to check. In conclusion, I have never done anything to make her believe I wanted another girl or anything along those lines. She confirmed this, and I can stake my life on it. She had access to all my passwords, and whenever a girl contacted me, I informed her, which happened often since I work in nightclubs and restaurants, where it is common for women to reach out to me for various reasons, even though I wear a ring on my finger to signal that I am taken. I consistently brought her small gifts, such as her favorite sweets whenever we met or flowers when she had a bad day. I cooked for her and her family, studied with her and her brother, and even assisted her mother with household tasks. Additionally, I once helped her grandfather with bathroom renovations, as I had previously worked in that field. Many of you might be curious about the nature of the fight, and I can assure you it was very brief. We only spent about an hour together that day, as she finished work at 7 p.m. and I started working around 9 p.m. Thus, our disagreement lasted only about 30 to 45 minutes, primarily about what our relationship meant to her. I want you to remember that this occurred during the time I was experiencing crises due to my father. I asked her, "What positive aspects do you see in this relationship?" hoping she would mention some things I had done for her to help calm my anxieties. However, she did not respond, and on Wednesday, she told me she felt I was undervaluing her and her feelings, while I personally felt undervalued myself and what I could offer her. I attempted to explain this to her, but it was clear she was indifferent. I can testify that I was also deeply affected by this because, while at work, a colleague who is my mother's age asked me why I looked sad. I confided in her, and she responded, "It's because you are worrying about this. You will never become like your father, so do not worry." Now, the most crucial point. During our conversation on Wednesday, I reasoned through why her sudden decision to leave seemed so off to me. I pointed out that she had appeared normal early Monday morning and then off from early afternoon until she broke up with me. I speculated that something must have happened between these times, and while I was articulating this, she nodded her head, but I initially failed to catch the significance of that. I later reflected on my reasoning, concluding with, "So I think you must have talked to someone, perhaps your mother," at which point she adamantly disagreed. Based on this, I suspect that she may have gone to the hospital Monday morning and something transpired there. Maybe she spoke with a psychologist, which led to her decision to end our relationship. Please do not judge me or suggest that something is missing. I promise I have always treated her as well as I could. Also, refrain from judging her. She has her issues. She is not the perfect person in the world, but I would give my life for her. If you think she cheated, no, she did not of that, I am certain. Our mutual friend R knows everything, but she does not want to disclose what they discussed, understandably, and I cannot call or reach out to her because she pleaded with me not to contact her again. What do you all think I should do? How can I resolve this? If you have any questions, I will gladly respond, but please, please do not judge. I have been vomiting and crying all week before posting this, and I have lost around 9 pounds due to this situation. I cannot handle much more. Story 3. I, NB24, just had a conversation with my parents, M58F56, in which they accused my partner, NB24, of isolating me from them. My father has always been quick to anger, which has created a divide between us. My mother and I have always shared a close bond, but she has developed an unhealthy attachment to me. She often treated me more like a friend than a mother, at times confiding in me about her issues with my father and sharing her feelings. Due to the frequency with which both of them have said hurtful things, I have become increasingly indifferent to the situation and have quickly dismissed my own feelings about it. Over the past 6 months, my parents and I have had multiple arguments, culminating in me deciding not to visit their home for Christmas. Unfortunately, during this time, my childhood cat passed away, and my grandmother, my father's mother, also died a month later. I am currently in therapy, working on establishing boundaries with my parents and understanding my own emotions. I tend not to voice my concerns, which has allowed issues to persist for a long time. My partner has been very supportive, encouraging me to express my feelings to them and confront their negative behaviors, but it takes time to unlearn those tendencies. Before this conversation, I had no idea that they held any negative thoughts about my partner, which was a profound shock given the specific remarks that were made. When I arrived at their house, both of my parents sat down at the table and, as I anticipated, addressed the elephant in the room, that is, my silence toward them. My mother was quite emotional, crying throughout most of the discussion, while my father spoke extensively. He began by saying that ignoring them was not the right choice and that it had been distressing for my mother. At that point, my mother was sobbing, which made me feel guilty, as naturally I would. He continued by expressing their desire for me to be involved in their lives and shared how difficult it was for them to explain my absence to their friends, as they had not spoken to me in some time. He also pointed out that adults do not simply ignore their problems. It is ironic for him to say this, considering he frequently does just that. My father made several additional comments before my mother interjected, stating that it was tormenting her not to speak with me and that she was attending therapy to cope with my distancing. She mentioned that it has been challenging for her to deal with significant losses recently, and now she must cope with the loss of me as well. She provided an example from a situation involving my ex, a story I do not recall, to illustrate her feelings, as though her sobbing did not already communicate enough. My father claimed that he believed I was a compassionate and caring person and that my behavior was out of character. I presume that some of the remarks made later connected to this notion. My mother went on to express that she could not live without me in her life and asked that I inform her if I intended to cut them off so she could harden her heart, whatever that means. While they were speaking, I remained quiet to allow them to express themselves without interruptions. My father eventually stated that some feedback was necessary, to which I replied that I wanted to let them finish without interrupting. I assured them that I did not want to eliminate them from my life and that I was attending therapy to work through my feelings. They both appeared pleased with my willingness to reconnect. Following this, I addressed my father's reactions, explaining that his responses were not normal. I described how I typically recognize when I am becoming upset, and even if I cannot articulate it, I can sense that something is off with my emotions. I suggested that if he were angry or upset, he could simply state that he was not in the mood to talk to avoid an outburst. He responded by explaining that he tries to resolve problems presented to him and assumes that I need a solution at that moment. I felt hurt by his response to a situation in which he blamed my partner and me for poor planning when external circumstances unexpectedly changed, and he made some hurtful remarks. To provide context for the situation, my partner and I are planning to move out of state in early 2025, which has caused our moving timeline to coincide with the holidays. Our landlord attempted to pressure us to move out sooner because she had another tenant ready to move in, prompting us to consider how to expedite our move if necessary. At that time, we were at my grandmother's house, on my mother's side, for my grandmother's service, while my father had returned to their home, my parents' house. As a result, my mother called my father to ask if he could enlist some of his friends to help with the move. I admit that the timing was inconvenient, as moving early would be very close to the holidays and New Year's. My father was not on speakerphone, but I could overhear him speaking through the phone since my mother was in the same room. He initially stated that no one would help us because the holidays were approaching, and he was unwilling to ask others for assistance. He subsequently blamed my partner and me for moving on short notice and poor planning. Naturally, I was upset by this, as his comments were unnecessary. He later apologized for his reaction during the call, but then proceeded to list reasons for his behavior. For example, he mentioned that my mother had just died and he had to be there and was unprepared for the situation. Now I understand that it was a stressful time and grief affects everyone differently, but this pattern of behavior is typical for him. He either refuses to acknowledge his actions or apologizes and follows up with an array of excuses. He then stated that he was not trying to make me feel guilty and expressed regret if he did. Honestly, I would consider forgiving him if he genuinely attempted to change instead of making excuses for his behavior. These kinds of discussions are typical for him, which is why it felt less authentic. I recognize that to my parents, my calling out their behavior seems entirely new, but I have explained that this has been an ongoing issue for a long time. Because I used to be in a poor mental state, I was not equipped to handle their behavior. Now that I am in a better place, the small things they do resemble boulders and are much harder to bear. I attempted to clarify this to them, but my father took the opportunity to remind me of the difficult times I experienced during college and how often they rushed to my side, which, of course, they would do since I am their only child. My mother interjected, saying that they did not raise me to be ungrateful, and complained about my supposed lack of gratitude for their help. In one specific incident, I expressed my appreciation, so I reiterated that I had done so, to which my mother replied that she must have missed it because she was too upset. Regarding another instance, my father took my car to get its oil changed, which I did not request, and when he left, he sighed loudly and slammed the door. One of my pet peeves is when people act as though it is burdensome to do something for someone who did not ask for it, which is how I perceived his actions. My father reiterated that he had done it out of kindness and that I should express my gratitude. I shared my feelings about his reaction and mentioned that I would prefer he refrain from offering help if I was going to face backlash for it. My father then accused my partner of isolating me from them and gaslighting me. He referred to a situation where my partner stood up for me during a phone call with my mother. Apparently, it was perceived that my partner monitored all my calls. This is not true as often. My partner is not even present when events occur, and I later discussed them with my parents. My mother chimed in, asserting that I deserved to know when I was on speakerphone. This contributed to their insinuation that my partner was mistreating me. Afterward, they offered me several items and insisted on meeting for dinner every other week. I will admit that not responding or communicating with them for an extended period was not the most effective way to address the situation. But honestly, every time I received a text or call from them, I felt anxious, fearing what they might say that could upset me. I explained that it felt like I was walking on eggshells and that I disliked the facade where no one addressed the real issues and pretended that everything was all right. Now they are acting as though everything is perfectly normal, despite our recent intense conversation. Am I losing my mind? I genuinely question the current state of my life. Edit to add. Summary. My parents are suddenly accusing my partner of isolating me from them after I chose not to respond to a message from my mother. Read for context about the subsequent conversation. I have been in a relationship with my partner for 2 years, and such comments have not arisen in the past. Their remarks now seem like an attempt at manipulation to draw me closer to them again. I have only recently decided to confront their hurtful comments. I have attended therapy for several years, and am working on this specific issue within that context, and I would appreciate hearing others' perspectives on the situation who are not directly involved. My close friends support my partner and agree that my parents' behavior is unhealthy. Story 4. Tangled in a toxic friendship. For 3 years, my friend Sarah's possessiveness and entitlement ruined my relationships and my birthday. Now she's withholding money I desperately need, yet I am torn about ending it before I move abroad. Should I let it go or stand my ground? So this is a rant story time about a toxic friend who is still in my life, and I am unable to remove her. Let us refer to her as Sarah. I met Sarah in the first year of my college through my former roommate. Let's call her Jane. Jane and Sarah were in the same class, so one day she came to visit Jane's room, where I lived as well. She immediately started talking to me very excitedly, sharing about herself, and asked for my Instagram account, probably because both of us belong to the same religion, while Jane does not. Eventually, we began hanging out often, the 3 of us, and she also started meeting my other friends from college. Sarah lives with her brother. They are both studying here. Fast forward a few months, and that is when things started getting unhealthy. She began to act very possessively and would get upset if I spent time with other friends without inviting her, or posted stories that didn't include her. She often displayed jealousy when I went out with Jane or shared stories featuring her. After all, she was my roommate, and of course we would enjoy our time together and be close. Whenever Jane and I had disagreements, Sarah would come to me and say things like, "Yeah, she is like that. Let's go out," instead of trying to mediate between us. I think she enjoyed it when I had conflicts with my other friends. In addition to her possessive behavior, she is very stingy when it comes to money matters. Whenever we would go out for a meal or tea or anything, she almost never paid. And if she did, she would ask me to send her half of the cost. She had this habit of not ordering anything herself, and if I did order something, she would eat from my plate. When I asked her to contribute, she would claim she didn't order anything or that she merely tasted my food. For any plans we made for movies or other activities, she would say beforehand, "I don't have any money," expecting one of us to offer to cover her expenses. If no one did, and we went without her, she would become upset. On one occasion, she caused such a significant misunderstanding between Jane and me that we didn't speak for 6 months and started living separately. We have since resumed talking, but we live alone and not together. Jane still does not speak to Sarah and probably will not ever again, which I believe is beneficial for her. Sarah also has a habit of taking my belongings. My parents live abroad and send me chocolates or food items that are available there, and if they send 2 packets, she will come and take one and say, "I'm taking this." I am someone who has difficulty saying no to requests for food items from others. I try, but I find it very difficult. She then started asking for other items belonging to me that are not merely 2 packets of food. For example, one time she saw my aloe vera gel and said, "Oh, I want it. What will you do with it?" She has also claimed my plates, cups, hairbrush, and anything else, saying, "Oh, I am taking this." I have informed her that I need those items, but she insists on taking them. I found it very challenging to engage in those discussions. Once, she even asked for a gift given to me by my fiancé, his Apple earphones, claiming, "Oh, I need these." I responded by saying, "No, he gave them to me. Why would I allow you to take them?" Surprisingly, she was upset about that, but she did not relent. There are numerous such incidents. One that stands out is when I brought chocolates for her from abroad. I asked her for one from the pack, and she flat out refused, saying they were hers. I was astounded by how she could refuse me chocolates that I bought for her. It was exceedingly cheap. These are all relatively minor incidents, but in the past few months, she has engaged in some very significant and serious behavior, which includes: the first incident is that she completely ruined my birthday. My fiancé, who lives in another country, had planned a surprise celebration at a fancy restaurant with all my friends. He reached out to Jane for help in preparing this surprise, as he was unable to manage it effectively from so far away. When Sarah discovered that he contacted Jane and not her, she became angry and upset, questioning why she wasn't asked, especially since she and Jane do not get along. She made a scene about it, and on my birthday at the restaurant, she sat there making faces, not eating anything at all, not speaking to anyone, and whispering comments to someone either about me or Jane. I asked her several times what was wrong, and she simply responded that nothing was wrong, continuing her behavior. Everyone noticed that her actions were impacting my mood and that of others, so they encouraged her to cheer up, but she did not. She didn't even eat a single bite of the birthday cake. She constantly made faces without smiling for the entire time and eventually left. The next day, I confronted her about her behavior, and she apologized, expressing sadness over why she was not chosen by me. I told her that my fiancé had organized everything and that I had no prior knowledge of it, but she insisted that I must have known. I explained to her that she ruined my day, and she texted me an insincere apology with a folded hands emoji, which felt extremely sarcastic. The second incident occurred a few days ago and has genuinely led me to feel that I have reached my breaking point. This situation is becoming excessively toxic. She borrowed money from me, which she was supposed to return last month. When I asked her for it, she claimed she did not have it and sent me a small amount instead, stating that she would send the rest later. I agreed. Now, a month has passed, and I am financially strained and need some money. So I texted her asking her to send me the remaining amount. Once again, she claimed she did not have any money. I inquired why not, indicating that I also lacked funds and required the money, urging her to ask her parents to assist or do whatever it took to send me my money, at least half of it, as I am in urgent need right now. She simply replied that she does not have any money and will return it when she has it. When I inquired when that would be, she responded with 4 to 5 months. That time frame would be the exact time when my college ends, and I will literally be leaving the country, which is when she wants to reimburse me. This amount is also not so substantial that she cannot manage to gather it somehow. She has had several months to do so but still refuses to return my money. I argued with her over text for about half an hour, asking for my money back immediately, as I need it now and not months later. I even proposed that she could pay me back bit by bit each month, but she flatly declined, insisting that she would pay me all at once. I do not know how to retrieve the money now. And the cherry on the cake is that since I asked her to return my money, she has been upset with me for simply asking for my own money back when I am in need of it. While she hasn't explicitly said she is upset, she has ceased sending me any reels as she used to, stopped reacting to mine, and hasn't sent snaps activities she typically engages in when she is upset. I just cannot comprehend her audacity in being upset in this situation. I should be the one feeling upset since she is not returning my money. I feel like this is genuinely the last straw. There are so many more things she has done, but I cannot articulate all of them here, or this will become too lengthy. Now I know that whoever reads this will ask me why I haven't ended the friendship. The reason is that we have been friends for the past 3 years, and my entire family, my fiancé, and my in-laws know her. They frequently inquire about her, asking if we have been hanging out or how she is doing. I will be graduating from college in the next 3 months, and after that, I will be moving to another country, likely not seeing her again perhaps only once in a blue moon many years from now. I wanted to avoid any drama because for the past 6 months, I have been considering whether I should let it all go, as it is only a few months. I do not want to create unnecessary drama or explain to all my family members why I no longer talk to her. However, I believe this situation is escalating beyond control. Even now, she is still in my life, operating under the assumption that it is only 3 more months until it is all over, but I am uncertain now if I should end it now or wait. All this time, I have been such a good friend, even after everything she has done. I continue to assist her whenever possible. I even lent her money after she created a scene on my birthday. Yet she persists in this behavior. This is very toxic.